sounds.
6:15. Ready?
All right.
Call the meeting to order. If you would, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, you have entrusted us as stewards of your creation. Please guide our hearts as we make our decisions. We seek you first in all we do together. We ask you to bless the people coming here to do the people's business. May we, as your stewards, be also always mindful of their service and our trust in you. Amen.
Okay, as we begin, there are no changes to the agenda. So with that, I would look for a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Could I get a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, carries 4-0. Move on then to the public appearances. First would be employee of the quarter.
All right, Mr. Chairman, this is our employee of the quarter for the third quarter of 2014. Our third quarter of 2014 employee of the quarter joined the Orange County team a little over 1 year ago. This employee treats coworkers and citizens alike with courtesy and respect, greeting everyone with a ready smile and palpable enthusiasm. They prioritize the provision of excellent customer service and above all else are successful in making people feel welcome, appreciated, and important. She is efficient, organized, and detail-oriented when handling even large, complicated deposits. She completes her work accurately and without complaint, all the while engaging citizens in cheerful conversation. She harbors a genuine concern for the well-being of the individual citizens with whom she interacts and for the community as a whole. She regularly participates in extracurricular team activities sponsored by Parks and Recreation, encourages her co-workers to join as well, and is vocal in her praise of programs operated by other departments. A true cheerleader for the county, this employee is visibly proud to live and work in Orange. Her tangible enthusiasm and laudable communication skills yield positive results for her department. It is with great pleasure, Mr. Chairman, that I present to the board our employee of the quarter, Ms. Heather Joyce.
Thank you very much.
Surprised you too. Come over here and turn around, we'll get the photo.
Thank you.
And I want you to know, every time I walk in, it's always, hi, how are you?
Thank
We
you
get
all
it
very
this
much.
too.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, we appreciate your job. Okay.
All right, next, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have our service awards. Today, attending is Kendall Nicely with 15 years of service, and she is a Circuit Court Senior Administrative Assistant. Kendall here? There she is.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also receiving service awards but not unable to be with us today is Genevieve Strong, 10 years of library aide, Michelle Beamer, 15 years branch librarian, and Gordon Kennan, 15 years Orange County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Deputy. And we'll make sure that.
Okay.
Alrighty. Put the eyes on so I can tell you what's next. The business spotlight, which would be Matt and Jennifer Boyer, owners of Deep Roots Home and Garden.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Boyer, and my wife Jennifer and I own Deep Roots Home and Garden Center. Deep Roots Home and Garden Center is family owned and family run by my wife, myself, and our 3 children, Thomas, Garrett, and Carissa. We are located at 28284 Constitution Highway in Rhodesville, which to most of you who've been around a while is home of the old Double B Farms, which was started by Mr. Bob Schwartz. My wife and I purchased that property back in January of this year, and we moved here from Somerset County, Pennsylvania, back in February and opened the store in April. So we are still a very young business, going on about 10 weeks now. But we're a fully stocked garden center. We have annuals and perennials, trees and shrubs, and a lot of garden center supplies that would be needed for your everyday gardener and enthusiasts alike. We also are a fully stocked Purina feeds dealer. We carry feed all the way from rodent feed clear up through horse feed, dog, cat, chicken, pig, to name a few. And we also have a selection of home decor items in our store, ranging mostly in primitive area, signage. We've got a lot of decorative items. We've got exterior flags, and a lot of things like that. And we also carry a lot of animal supplies, things that people would need on a day-to-day basis for their animals, bedding, sprays, things like that, warmers, things like that are all associated with animals. One of the reasons that my wife and I moved to this area is, one, to fulfill a dream of owning our own garden center. It's been something we've wanted to do for many years, and we decided that now was the time to do it. And another reason is that my wife has family in this area and with deep ties to the greenhouse industry, and that's part of where our name comes from, Deep Roots. There's several large and wholesale greenhouses in the area that are owned by my wife's family. So that's about all I have for today.
What are your hours typically?
Our typical hours right now are Monday through Friday. We are 9 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and then on Saturday we're open from 8 to 5, and we're closed on Sundays.
I apologize for the weather. It's not quite as cool as it is in Somerset in the summer.
No, it's not. No.
Although
But,
the 4th of July was closed.
Yeah, very nice.
July was closed, so.
but the winters are much better.
So how has business been since you got started? You comfortable with what's going on?
Very comfortable, yes. Things have gone real well. We, starting off, we weren't quite sure what to expect, but we're very happy with what's going on. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alrighty. Following that would be the 2014-15 real estate reassessment.
Everybody get a big kick out of that, man. Anyway,
Well,
I'm
it
getting,
just follows so good right behind it.
Well,
New
it
business.
does.
Here's your reassessments.
it does. Deep roots too. So we're glad to be here. I'm Gary Eanes. I'm one of the partners in Wamper Eanes Appraisal Group, and we're so glad to be of service again to Orange County and be back. I just want to give you folks an update when we'll be started and things like that, and see if you have any questions for us. I met with the Commissioner of Revenue's office today, and Larry and Renee and I walked over and looked at our office. It'll be in the same building that we were in last time, and Larry will start doing our computer hookups in the next few weeks and getting that office established. We'll send an appraiser in sometime next month in August to start pulling out sales, comparable properties that we will visit to establish our land rates and building cost, and we'll meet with realtors in the area and just talk about what's happened with the real estate market here since we were here 4 years ago. So we're back, and we're glad to be here. We're not coming in with any preconceived ideas. We're going to look at your market right here in Orange County. We'll look at Lake of the Woods and the Barbersville area and the Gordonville area and Gordonsville area and Somerset and so on, and look at and see what's happened in the market there in those areas. Any questions for the board?
Oh, yeah.
From the board? Oh, yeah, okay. I was afraid so.
Well, last time, obviously, everybody lived on the lake and Lake Woods saw a small decrease in their assessed valuation,
Right.
where the county went down 28-30%.
Right.
So most of us saw a big, huge increase in taxes.
Tax burden.
Doesn't
right.
bother me because I'm, I recognize what the market does.
Right.
But this time I have been looking at the market, the sales, recent sales versus the assessed valuation,
Mhm.
figuring out, what kind of an increase when I'm looking. And what I'm seeing is pretty amazing. I mean, it's all over the map. I'm
That's-
seeing places selling for 30% less than assessed value and those selling for 30% more. I was looking for some sort of a trend.
Right.
But it's a pretty wide distribution, which tells me, did we get it right last time on the assessed valuation?
That market it's that way everywhere right now, Mr. Frame. It's, we just see them all over the place. I mean, there's still some deals out there, I guess. It seems like, folks that wanna hold on to it and demand a
Okay.
certain price for their properties. If they wait long enough, they will get it. It's not just
All right.
the
I'll-
same
I'll
in
just-
Lake of the Woods.
I'm just
but
gonna warn my constituents to look
Look close.
very carefully at
Right.
theirs versus their neighbors.
Right, and we'll join the MRIS up here and look
Okay.
at those.
All right.
We can't tell from the outside sometimes that the kitchens and the bathrooms have been updated,
Understand.
and, so all that
But
plays
you
into
do have
it.
access to the, to any, building permits, that
The-
have been issued.
Right, right. As long as they take those out. So, but we will look, and it's hard. It's hard to make those decisions and, just from the outside, so.
Well, I just say you'll probably get a closer look this time.
Yeah, we will. It'll be looked at, extremely hard.
All right.
One question that I've had from several different people since this discussion has started and people are aware that it's coming is
Right.
it is the issue of comparables. And I guess one of the questions that I get is how much weighting do the local comparables versus a broader regional or more, what's your thinking in terms of how you're going to
Yeah,
arrive at that,
at the market value,
at that comparable indicator?
of course, we start right in that subdivision,
Right.
since we're talking about Lake of the Woods, we'll start there first. And then you have to just spread out until you find the comparable properties. Once you, get out into the county, it's a little harder. Acreage sales are few and far between. We don't, pull in sales from other counties, other than maybe industrial type properties or commercial properties. We will look, statewide on those sometimes, especially if it's a special use property. But we always start within the neighborhood itself and just spread out from there.
That was going to be my question. My neighborhood is rather sparse and few and far between.
Okay.
Most of my constituents, as well as myself, believe in the Second Amendment.
Mhm.
And when the guys come around their cars,
Right.
a suggestion, make sure
Yes.
that even if they come past the hours that they had planned on coming out,
Okay.
wear their little name tag
Yes, sir.
and wear the little sign on their car.
We will have
Because
those.
I know
We,
last time they didn't always do that, and
Right.
they came close a couple of times to having an interesting thing. But how
we
do
found that a lot in this county.
Yes, yes.
We did.
What basis do you use for comps in the rural areas?
We'll pull every sale, that has happened over the last 18 to 2 years. We'll start with 2 years and then kind of keep tuning it as we go. We break those sales down into a price per square foot, and that's the best, indicator of value there. We'll talk to some builders and establish our cost new, but still yet, I think part of the area in the state, and maybe still in Orange, and I hate to make the prediction right now without looking at the market, but sometimes it's still better to buy an existing home than to build a new one. I don't know if that's the case here or not, but we break those sales down on a per square foot basis, including the land. And then we look at the comparable, land sales, any that we have. And, we'll spot those on the maps and go from there. When we, left here last time, based on the sales that we had, we were at 98%, you know, of market value. I think it kept, and Mr. Frame was chairman at that time. I said, I don't think we've seen the bottom yet, and I think it kept dropping for a few more months, maybe, and it may still be. I don't know.
One thing I noticed that there was on the land value of lakefront properties.
Yes, sir.
They're pretty much standardized across the lake, and there are a lot of differences
There
between the
are.
guy in a deep cove and the guy that's got a nice point.
That's the
So,
hardest thing.
And I didn't see as much variation as I might have thought, given in terms of frontage and a lot of other things.
You do have to watch for that. You know, if you're
So-
on the side going back in the cove is one thing, but if you're at the end of the cove looking out to the main channel, that's, you know, that's
Well,
worth
again,
more.
there was, it seemed like they were pretty much all the same price,
Yeah.
so we might look at that.
We will look at that.
Okay.
And we welcome any folks that you know that we need to speak with, you know, please get them in touch with us. Renee has our number, then, you know, we can make appointments, whatever. But we welcome any input that the board would have. You folks live here, and we'll never know the county like you do, so we welcome any thoughts from you.
One other item
Yes, sir.
that I've heard, I heard last time and I've heard questions about this time is the determination of the condition of the improvement. And there's a wide range of variability from new and in good condition. It can also be new and not in good condition.
Right.
But new or in good condition, all the way down to those that are, in order to have a real market value, they need a lot of work. And so
Right.
I'd encourage you to be mindful of that and do whatever you can to, on an individual property at
We
least,
look for those replacement windows and that, you
Those
know,
kind of
that new
things.
meter on the outside and,
That seems to be the topic of great deal of concern in
It
some
is.
cases, because we do have a housing stock that's in some cases, you know, fairly old and
yeah,
well-maintained, and fairly old and not well-maintained.
and not well maintained. And those are hard to do. Again, you know, we're making our best decision from the outside, so,
And one last thing, I don't want to belabor this.
yes.
As you probably have heard already, we have a new software system that we're implemented or have implementing or have already implemented in some cases. I'm just wondering if your work is gonna be able to either utilize or help move us along the process of getting that fully implemented.
Was that the
In some cases,
new
these things need to
finance?
be integrated.
The Munis stuff.
The
Munis,
Munis software,
right,
yeah,
right.
that's more of the billing. We'll still be using the CAMA package that you have runs off the AS400. So we'll be doing all of our valuations on that, and it'll be dropped into the Munis system for billing, I believe it's.
And I guess it's that drop, is that something that is?
That's something that Munis or your IT department will,
Is that a re-entry?
No, it's a import-export.
yeah.
It can be import, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a good system. It's around the state.
Okay.
So we're seeing it a lot.
That's a Larry thing.
That's a Larry thing.
I saw him begin to lean forward a little bit.
That's
so.
Larry.
Actually, it's a Stonewall Technology thing, because they're our camera vendor, but
Okay.
Okay, as long as you know how to plug it in. so.
Right, they'll
Not
plug
me.
it in. Once we get our figures right, and he can move them, or somebody can, Stonewall can move them. All right,
Okay.
any questions, please, don't hesitate to call, and we'll be showing up, again next month. And,
So when do you first start making visits?
sometime, probably, last weekend in August. It'll take a little while to come in and pull the data from the commissioner's
Okay, I
files.
just wanted to make sure that I can alert my constituents.
All right, yep, we'll.
He's coming.
Jim and I need to alert ours as well.
That's right.
Especially.
You're probably more so than me, yes.
That's,
We have a lot of posted signs in my district, and there are
That-
people that enforce those posted signs.
And
Sheriff,
now-
you have my address, correct?
And we need to, I guess, talk to administration about posted signs and things like that as to what you want us to do on those. Last time, we were told, don't go.
And that's probably still wise advice.
You know, so,
But we'll work.
Just
The
double
sheriff
it.
is, the
Just
sheriff
double-
is
just
not.
double the assessment, that's all right.
When in doubt, don't get out.
Don't get out, that's right.
Big dogs and posted signs are usually important information.
We do, and we cruise, we'll try to, get in. A lot of our guys will leave our note on the gate if the gate's locked and ask them to call. Some of those folks will never call, but,
Don't believe I've returned the call yet, sir.
right, so, we have a contract with the county that says we'll do an appraisal, and it's hard not to climb those gates. I grew up in this business climbing gates and going, and, but times have changed. So I'll do as directed.
And we'll work on at least trying to push out as much information, giving notice
Okay.
to everybody through all of our media channels that this is starting and.
Okay. And once we get the full staff here, sometimes, like in Montgomery County where we're working right now, they'll post the actual name of the appraiser and what area they're working in. So, and they'll, maybe we need to get our photographs out there or something on your website or something.
Yeah, I think we can work through any as creative as we can be with our IT, our media channels. We'll certainly do that.
Well, actually, when a posted sign out there, I mean, you can't see it, that's actually a premium property out there, isn't it?
Sometimes, that's right. We had one in Buckingham County that the folks would not allow us on the property, and but they came to the Board of Equalization asking for relief, and they finally got on the property. So
That's way to get on the property.
so there are ways, I guess.
I don't envy you.
Not at all. But yes, pictures on the website would be
Right.
excellent.
Google Earth is a tool that we use a lot now too. So
It doesn't work in Orange County.
it doesn't work in Orange County.
It's totally inaccurate.
It may be.
We're blocked out like the Pentagon.
Well, okay,
You better go check his house.
Okay, I better check it. Okay.
All right,
Well, it's good seeing you folks again,
All right.
and we are glad to be here. And,
thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you a lot.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
You didn't expect to get that much grief.
It's
You
more
haven't even
warning
started
than
yet,
that.
we're already after.
And of course, the next thing that follows so good is the presentation of the Orange County GIS. Who arranged this thing, Bonnie?
Oh, we're staying with the real estate thing.
Can you switch me over, Allison? All right, it is my pleasure to introduce our new GIS, our online GIS. It is 98% complete at this point. We're still working with our provider, which would be Timmons, to make some final adjustments and changes that we've requested. But as you can see, our new site, you're prompted by a pop-up, and you are able to search by address, owner's name or parcel ID number for those that actually know their entire ID number, which is rarely anybody. Or most people will probably end up going directly to the map.
How many digits do our parcel ID numbers really have? Some have 2 or 4, some have 14.
12, 14, something
Yeah,
like
are all
that.
those zeros really necessary in this?
I've been told they're placeholders, quote unquote.
If you want, in the old system, you wanted to enter it into, to look at the tax results, you had the assessment results, you had to use all the numbers.
So that's what you can still do, like I said, if you know it. Or, if we wanted to search for,
What do we have that we
Teal's
didn't have
property.
before? And what don't we have that we had before?
what we now have most importantly is something that not only works on Internet Explorer, it works on every single internet browser that you can
Okay.
provide.
Well, I got a lot of calls about that.
It's very frustrating
You
because
could
it's
only
not,
use Internet Explorer for the
a lot
old
of
one.
people just don't use it anymore. Also, really cool thing is you can access it from mobile devices now, which we couldn't have before. It's really useful out in the field or on the go, as most people are.
you can talk a little bit about the difference in what we control data-wise and so forth as opposed to the other? Because I think that's a big difference that we need to understand to
Yes.
communicate with people. Okay.
That's probably the second huge thing. The site's really well laid out. It's very user-friendly. You have the various tools, again, self-explanatory. For the parts of the county that have Google Street View available, you can link directly to that. Our Street View is still from 2008 because they haven't come out here again yet. And obviously, we have control over a legend, and this is what we as staff have control over now. Not only with what we have here, but also the data that backs it up. That's really the big thing. Before, anything that related to parcels or anything else you saw on our GIS, we didn't actually control. We had a middleman, a third party, do that. That's all changed now because we brought that in-house.
So we can blame our own staff when it
You can
doesn't
blame
work.
me now. Yeah. You'll see we added several things you didn't have before. You can control map transparency, which is helpful depending on what you're looking at. There's also some environmental features that we didn't have before, notably the dam inundation zones and wetlands, which are very helpful to have. Our floodplain layer is actually updated from what we had before, so it's more accurate. And again, with parcels, we're now able to work with the commissioner's office more readily for more frequent updates. And
How does that data exchange and update, how is it going to work, I guess is the.
They're on a 6-week, I believe, update cycle for real estate, just general data, their spreadsheet of all the parcels we have in the county. And they do that, like I said, every 6 months. And we've set up, with the help of Larry, just a folder that only we can see. So we're able to transmit between each other. So she'll just upload an Excel spreadsheet, and then I'm able to go in and update our parcel data.
You have layering on this.
Mhm.
Okay. How is public safety going to integrate with this GIS?
This is gonna be a 2-step part. We've got the parcel related, the commissioner related stuff. We're set on that, so we're 50% of the way. The last half of that, the public safety related stuff, mainly addressing and how they tie into our roads. MSAG still maintains that. That data's not at the best accuracy that we need it. So we actually have to have, ideally, someone go in and audit all of that data to make sure it's up to par with what we need. And then there's some, I guess, coordination efforts between the sheriff and the E911 centers that have to happen before we can bring that part in-house as well.
How far off are we on that?
About a year. We're thinking about a year. So mid to late 2015, we should be fully in-house.
Okay, in-house and updated, or?
In-house to the point that we maintain everything.
Well, that's part of my concern. I think the sheriff can probably speak to it as well as Nikki. MSAG's been a waste of money from day one. They're still totally inaccurate. And public safety is one of the most crucial things to have up to date, especially with the GIS system. I don't really understand why we're going to still be so far out on the public safety side, and I don't believe we can integrate MSAG's information into the GIS mapping because of the inaccuracies that exist within MSAG. It's just of great concern to me, and I would think certainly to public safety, the same thing, because there's still many places that from day one were incorrectly inputted. On the map books, especially, I would say mostly in the eastern end of the county. Is that, Chief? John, you back there? I see you hiding. But is it the eastern end of the county for the most part, that has the worst inaccuracies probably.
You mean in terms of road designations and,
Yes, and actual even road locations and everything. I'm just concerned that we have a system that we're not utilizing, especially for our public safety, which to me is one of the more important aspects to utilize.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal was to get to a single GIS system that we could all use and rely on, whether it's public safety or the commissioner or
Right.
you guys in planning and zoning or the general public. I mean, that's still where we're headed, I take it.
Absolutely.
But it's just
I
a
think-
bumpy road to get there, it sounds
I
like.
think our 911 director would back me up on this, is that we could have taken all of the public safety stuff on, but it is so inaccurate and in some points just hardly usable that it would not be worth the headache at this point. Which is why that audit is it's why we need that so dearly before we take that on.
Okay,
when you say take on the public safety, what are you talking about that you're going to have in this system that directly supports public safety?
Well, more importantly, we're cutting out that middleman that I was speaking of earlier. So,
Okay.
and the person that will be responsible for actually placing address points on the data that 911 gets will have intimate knowledge of the county planning, essentially. So instead of hiring somebody that doesn't really have any knowledge of the county to place an address point to a structure that doesn't exist, kind of just placing it, it's moving far beyond that. And then when they have inaccuracy issues, we can go in on the fly and correct it. Instead of waiting 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sometimes up to 3 months to get just an address point corrected, we can do that the same day.
But part of this migration from our vendor, our third-party vendor, to an in-house is actually using existing staff to be able to accommodate that, and that then gives,
That's a time
that,
constraint.
Right.
if resources could solve some time, but we're trying to do this with
well,
what our.
that's
what
part of
is-
my concern is that our vendor, to say that they're on their last breath, I think might be a mild understatement. They went from having a number of people in their office here in town to, I believe, they're working out of a house now. I'm sorry, I really feel that the public safety side of it is crucial, and I understand the staff restraints and everything, it's just,
Maybe what we need is a little discussion of how we get
how we could.
from where we
accelerate-
are today with MSAG on the public safety side to where we need to be. What needs to happen, and how do we make it happen?
right, because
How about
we have
we
the
do-
technology, I guess, is my.
How about we do this, let's staff, get together and we'll come up with, status quo and other options that would accelerate the timeline of migrating off of our third party into our own in-house. And essentially what the cost would be associated with that with either labor or materials or contracted services.
Right, and that's the other thing I know over the years, the cost for the third party has been, at times, a whole lot more than what I believe would be.
We're spending money now, I mean, and
Right.
it's whether we use that money to redirect that plus maybe some additional dollars to accelerate the migration. But we can come up with some options and some scenarios that you all can discuss at a future meeting
Okay.
soon.
Yeah, that's certainly
Sorry,
not something
I
we're
just-
unaware of.
yeah.
Just a,
It's just.
yeah, we were totally on the
Just
same
gotta get
page.
there first.
Yeah,
So
yes.
this is on the website now.
This is ready to go. Like I said, I've been working with Timmons over the past week just to point out little nitpicky things.
How soon can I access it?
You can access it right now.
Can
Okay.
you just
All
pull
right.
up a parcel to show everyone what
Okay.
a parcel looks like?
That's fine.
So
I'll
we-
have more questions after I play with it.
Yeah, but it sounds like this can do at least what the old system was doing earlier, and probably a lot more.
So depending on how you search, most people will pull up advanced options, because most people know, at least from my experience here, has been their map number and their lot number at least. So when you search for those individually, this is what you pull up. You're able to choose from different, whatever matches your search results. So just 2232, for example, is Mr. Randolph. And the other thing we're able to do now that we didn't have before is actually pull up the parcel cards from the commissioner and generate reports for those. And this is something we're still working on as well. There was some stuff they had that was
So you got
just,
the property cards right on access.
yeah.
Well, that's nice.
That, does all of that data link, I'm concerned about updating and, because in the past it was easy to find a difference between something the GIS would show versus the property card. Is that all dealing from a single database now that, or is this all keyed in 12 times?
This references basically the same data. So whenever the commissioner shoots out that they're, whenever they update their Excel spreadsheet, they'll give that to me and I upload that with our parcel data, our lines,
Okay.
and they get updated at the same time.
But this ties to her, when you go into the property record, that ties to her records.
Not directly,
her
it's
files.
she has to actually export it out to be used.
Okay, so,
So if something geophysical with the property doesn't change, but ownership does?
Yep.
That would come in as a form of a spreadsheet that then you enter into.
okay.
But those updates that you're talking about take care of rezonings that happen or additions or demolitions or whatever to the property, all of those kind of things. That process flows, because I know we found in the past some that didn't flow.
Well, in preparation for this, I actually went through and corrected all of our zoning layer. So what you're gonna see
Okay.
on here is accurate. It's what we use in the office. And those get corrected on the fly. So when a rezoning happens the next day, as
Well,
soon
when-
as we can get it onto Timmons database and they can upload it to their,
Yeah, that's a tremendous
Website.
advantage, because
yeah.
when you find two different pieces of data on the same property, you go,
Well, I guess my concern is we're having a reassessment, so you're gonna have a whole bunch of, how many thousands of new property cards? And those have to be manually entered into this system? All right,
No, it's all, we have a way of automating it.
okay. All right, that's
No,
fine.
I would have no hair left. I would be bald.
it's not so bad, believe me.
Okay, so if for instance, the Commissioner of Revenue updates a property card with a change of ownership or some other, or an improvement or something like that, you get a record that it's been changed. You get a file saying it's been changed. Do
Well-
you?
Or do they send a spreadsheet file with 30 properties on it and you update them at one time?
Everything gets updated at once. So it's as often as the commissioner wants to update their spreadsheet.
So she updates her spreadsheet, which has her property cards on it,
Mhm.
and you just inject them into the system.
Once
Yep.
she sends them to you.
Yeah, we have a way, the automating, what we do is we match them up by parcel, the actual PIN numbers, and it'll check and see if anything's different between the two databases. And if it's different, it'll update. If not, it ignores it.
Are we going to be at a point where when they update a property card, it's updated on GIS?
Probably in the future.
Okay.
We're talking several $100,000 to get to that point. And a lot of infrastructure and the ability to host websites that we just don't have.
Okay, so, but it takes, as opposed to she updates her property card, it doesn't automatically go to GIS, she gives you the information and you inject it.
Correct.
Right,
All right.
he doesn't manually do it, it does it by comparison.
Okay,
Right,
all right,
right.
that's fine, that's fine.
You thought you were gonna do a demonstration. We didn't, we never let you get. very
No, this
far.
questions this is great.
Now, can you also, highlight a property like that and get, other information? Before there was an ability to, click on the info tag and get size and dimensions and all sorts of things. is that now linked to the property card?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
what-
all,
okay.
when you generate your report, it comes up all in one.
Yeah,
So
okay,
you get one central source of all the parcel information.
yeah,
But I can still measure distances on that.
Absolutely. You can actually measure polygons now in acreages, which we couldn't do before.
I know this is really stretching it, but if there's been a survey recorded, can you pull that off of the GIS?
Not directly, because I don't believe we have a way to, because we'd have to connect to the courts. There might be a way, but it's not something that we've pursued yet.
Well, let's say somebody splits a property in half, and they do a survey to do that. How then do you have the data to make sure your GIS has got the accurate location of the split?
Well, we have to see all the parcel, or all the plats when they come in anyway. So
Okay.
we keep our own internal spreadsheets of what actually happens with regards to parcel boundary changes. But we wait until the commissioner assigns their tax map numbers to new parcels.
Okay.
And they usually mark on the plats and then give them back to us, and then at which point we go in and update, and then update our website.
so that's giving you in real time the coordinates, is that right? Wherever your pin is that what I see down in the
Yeah,
bottom
you have your
left?
lat and your long on the bottom left there.
So I get the latitude and longitude in my spot.
You have satellite view too.
Yeah, we're expanding that right now. We have the basic stuff they offer, which you have your street view. And I don't know how well you can see it. It works better on the TV, I guess. You can see some minor topology, or topography, I mean. You can adjust that in the aerials.
Okay.
We're gonna have the 2009 and then the 2013 that they just had from last year. So those will be cached and available for viewing on here. And then we also have a topo layer that includes things like streams and that kind of stuff. And then obviously you can still, there's help links available through here, under the help button. And you still have the ability to print the map and to save it as a PDF.
And I'm not trying to cause a problem with this. Fire hydrants. Is there a layer for fire hydrants? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult. It's electronics, it's the digital world, it's where we should be at.
I don't see any problem with being able to do that.
No.
You do have
I
them
mean-
there.
We have hydrant data, but they're not been verified. We don't know
Okay,
where
so-
they came from.
So you can actually, you can put the hydrants on this map,
We could.
as long as they're verified.
Yeah.
Okay.
At some point, I'm sure we will. It comes back down to the audit of the public safety data that really needs to be done first. But yes, we do have that data. It is
Okay.
available. It's just not on the website.
I mean, we'll move into fire hydrants, utilities, water, wastewater, telecommunications, electrical distribution, natural gas.
Right, and that's where I was, it's before you came on, but it just seemed an odd place to start at. Just for me, it seemed like we would have started somewhere else in the system than where we started at.
Well, it looked like we were starting at what we already had.
That's what I started with.
Right. Okay.
We're getting there.
We're getting there, there's no question, it's just,
And part of this also then we'll get into response times, fire rescue station location, population
Right.
densities, calls for service.
okay, that's,
Planning tool.
yep.
Do you perchance have the census blocks on here?
Not on here, but we can get them.
Okay. Well, I mean, that,
And sometimes that would
we
that
got
would be
plenty of
helpful.
time.
So the system is definitely capable of everything that's been asked.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And more.
Okay.
I'm not
It's
telling you
It's just a
about the
matter
and
of
more.
resources to do it all.
We need a few more Joshes, it sounds like. I think
But
dollars
Department of
follows with
Josh
that,
to
too.
keep this up, huh?
That's
Dollars
that's
follows
probably
with
one
that,
of the scenarios we'll be coming back.
That's,
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you, Josh.
That's
Thank
my
you.
This is a big, improvement.
There's one thing I was actually really proud of, and I didn't mention it, so I hope Brian doesn't shoot me, but eventually the cost savings from not having to pay somebody to do parcel maintenance, just from this alone, within 4 or 5 years, will have paid for itself. So anything beyond that, as long as we don't spend any more money, will be just a direct savings. So we're getting a better product for less money. Is the point to take away from that.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting
Well, and we
That-
control the data and the updates and all those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
and we have much improved accuracy. Good.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you.
We got, anybody else
Slap
want to
on our
speak
heads.
tonight?
All right, next we
Come on,
move on.
Nikki.
Move on to the E911 biannual report. Nikki.
After seeing what happened to the previous two speakers, maybe.
Oh, good. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. I'm here to present to you the biannual report for the 911 Center, and this is going to be a recap of the FY 2014 fiscal year. For FY14, our call volume was 58,582. When you look at that raw data and compare it to FY13, you'll actually see that the total calls for numbers of phone calls have actually gone down. However, when you start breaking the data apart and looking at what is a landline 911 versus an administrative versus a wireless, you'll see that we've had a 23% increase in our wireless 911 calls, a 10% increase in our hardline 911 calls, and a 36% increase in our abandoned 911 calls.
Explain again what the term abandoned means.
That's a phone call where somebody hangs up before we have a chance to answer
Okay.
it, be it they pocket dial or they dial 911 and say, oops, I did that in accident, and then hang up quickly.
Without talking to.
Yes, without us verifying that there was or was not an emergency.
Okay, and if you do and if they do say, I'm sorry, it's not an emergency, I just made a mistake or something like that.
We just take their name, confirm their phone number, and just note it in the CAD and then disconnect the call.
Okay, all right.
So.
And does that show up as an incoming 911? It still does?
It will reflect as an abandoned call. If you start pulling the stats even to the micro level though, you can actually pull the stats and it will say an abandoned process call. That means it came in as abandoned and we processed it and made sure we called it back.
Okay.
So you can see that no call ever goes on, not handled.
So that's the difference between your 911 calls and your calls for service?
Correct, yes. Our total 911 call volume was 19,056 calls, and if you break down the numbers, 73% of our calls are actually from cellular or wireless devices in Orange County.
What is it now, 70?
73%, so we're far exceeding the pace of our landline 911. We're excited also not excited, but it's also good to note that in Orange now, because there's that many cellular calls, people are obviously texting to 911. And we do not have the ability today to answer that calls. The FAA did come out and mandate, though, that the FCC did come out and mandate, though, that now cellular providers, if you text 911, they now have to provide you a message saying that there is no text to 911 services in your area. So the providers such as AT&T, Sprint, Verizon are actually mandated now to do that.
Wasn't that something you're saying that we're gonna do here in the future?
That is on my goals, and yes, that is hopefully in the next fiscal year is to have text to 911 services here in Orange County.
Okay.
We keep an eye again on these call volumes, as you know, because that is a huge spike in our wireless call volumes. Wireless are harder to process. They do take longer to process because we don't have an address. None of the information is verified. A lot of people are third-party callers, such as this weekend. Every single caller was not from Orange County, which is good that we're bringing tourists, but very difficult when they're trying to report a 911 emergency. So many people did not know where they were. So those calls take longer to process, which means there's more drain on the communications officers. Do you need more staff? So with the 10th position that we had appropriated to us for FY15, we will now be bringing in 2 people to work our split shift from noon to midnight to help cover those call volumes. We're able to statistically say that from noon to midnight, those are our busiest hours, and Tuesdays are actually our busiest days. So, little known fact.
No long weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesdays, they gotta go back to work.
Exactly. So on top of our 911 call comparison, with that, with phone calls increasing, you would expect to see your dispatch calls for service increasing. That has again risen by about 3.5% from FY13 for a total call volume of 17,765. Again, this is showing a 6.2% increase over the last 3 years. And I've stated many times at these meetings that these numbers are historically trending up on average anywhere from 3 to 5%. Our staffing, I'm gonna jump to FY14 and
Can I get back
Oh, yes.
on your page where you talk about calls?
yes,
You say you have, you're reflecting your performance measure as
Mhm.
being 90% being less than 5 seconds for
Mhm.
answer times, and 95% dispatch less than 90 seconds.
Mhm.
So that's what you said as your criteria. What are you meeting now?
We're actually able to meet those goals today.
You're at that or better than that, or what?
For the call ring answer times, I can tell you that we're better than that. For the call process times to dispatch, we're right at that level.
Okay.
It'd be improved if you had better street locations.
We're working on it, I promise.
How do you go about on these calls that come in from New York? Because there's a cell phone. How do you process that? You just have to talk to them and figure out where they are?
Yes, Google is kind of our lifesaver with a lot of this when people do call, and for whatever reason, it's called nomadic VoIP is where you see it on the voice over internet, or it's a nomadic call, and it just happens to hit Orange County for whatever reason. Google is normally one of the biggest things that we'll use to look up the police department and actually then take that call and transfer it to the correct location and the correct agency. And you see that I've taken calls from Texas. For how they ended up in Orange, I couldn't tell you. But that's the tools and resources that we use, is the internet, to find that information. On page 4, we talk about our staffing, and for FY14, we actually only had 1 employee leave us. She actually resigned. She was one of our part-time employees, and resigned because she took a full-time position in Alexandria, so moved out of Orange. So that actually brings our total retention rate for staff to 94%, which is the best that we've seen it since I started here in FY11. So from 36% to a retention rate of 64% to 94% is a huge market improvement. We've also, in that time, been allowed to be able to develop career opportunities for our staff. We have communications training officers now, which are now actually rewarded. We're able to compensate them with a stipend. And then we've also enacted the 2 supervisors positions. So there is actually career and growth within the communications center, which is definitely helping, and we have people filling those positions, and we're excited for that. Okay. Obviously, stress is the #1 biggest factor of our job. I'm going to pick on Mr. Zodi for a second. He sat down here this morning for the drill for North Anna and came to us at the end of the day and said, "We don't know how you do it sitting down here in the basement day by day." He goes, "I have a completely different respect for the job you folks do." So it was kind of neat to see and somebody sit in our seats and actually, wait a second, this is what it is like. Our systems, this year, we're looking to upgrade a multitude of systems. Our CAD will be going through a massive upheaval. We'll be replacing servers. We'll be going to a more of a virtualized type environment. We'll be adding our decision support software. We'll be adding some more interfaces. So we're excited to get that project to kick off. That will be at the end of August, beginning of September. Our radio system, obviously RCC is here, and that's for discussion later, but we will also be upgrading those servers and those computers, and that will again be happening earlier this fall. Our EMD program, we're still in a recognized EMD accredited center. Our Vesta Palace phone system has been installed, so our brand new 911 phone system is installed and up and working. And we're working with our film vendor to bring the text to 911 into Orange County. Okay.
Do you have a feel for when that would be?
The text 911, in the next fiscal year is what we're hoping. My goal would be end of calendar year. My realism on one of these projects is end of fiscal year of next year.
But you're looking at it sometime in this next fiscal year.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. And our domain server generators and facility, again, we're just trying to maintain them. We have done a few renovations downstairs since we've actually had to bring more CAD monitors down to be able to support the kind of programs that we're running now. So you've seen some updates happen again and again to meet the ergonomic needs to function with so many computers and monitors. In FY14, we were actually able to again accomplish quite a lot. Our new phone system was a big deal to us. That was well overdue, and we're excited that that project is finally wrapped up and working, and it's a really neat system. We're continuing to review staffing needs and coverage as it relates to call volumes. Again, it's interesting to watch these spikes and be able to actually drill down into these numbers and see where we need the support and where we don't. We again awarded 3 Communications Officer of the Year's award. We awarded Amy French, she was Communications Officer of the Year. Angelina Bragg was Trainee of the Year, and our part-time employee for the 2nd year running was Jeff Dodson. Code Red is up and running with the weather warnings, and we continue to promote that. In fact, we worked with Lake of the Woods and did a huge mass. They helped us out, actually. They did all the work for us, and we were actually able to mass promote that in the Lake of the Woods area.
How many people have signed up for it now? Do you have a feel for it?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. I have the answer in my email, and I want to say for the lake area, it was about 417. I couldn't tell you the total number for the whole system there. It was either 217 or 417. I'll have to get back with you on the exact number.
And I'd like to see the whole county, because I think this is something we should be promoting for the whole county.
All right, I will absolutely I'll get that information to you. Okay. We implemented our 2nd supervisor's position starting July 1st and promoted Pamela Lace to that position. We've completed our spring test study, we completed the RCC drive test, and we've again worked with Larry to develop a strategic IT replacement plan of our systems. For upcoming of 911, we're very proud to actually say that Smart 911 is now working in our county. Peggy McDaniel, my supervisor, has been instrumental in making this project happen. The 911 Center actually goes through training this Wednesday and Thursday. And once we go through training, she will be starting the marketing campaign for Smart 911. If you remember what that was, it was to allow citizens to sign up and provide information to the 911 services. So we're very excited to finally have that working.
So you haven't started signing anybody up yet?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can, but it's kind of still under the radar.
I just wonder. It'll be interesting to see the response of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We also began our APCO Project 33 accreditation status, again trying to get our training program certified by APCO, saying that we do meet the minimum training requirements for public safety telecommunicators. And we're hoping to have that wrapped up by in the next 4 months or so. We're continuing to work on the 911 building relocation project. We want to install our new radio consoles. Most of this I've hit on. Again, we're continuing to talk with RCC about engineering a new radio system because we've got the short-term and the long-term goals when it comes to that. We're going to complete the CIP project of replacement generators. Again, make sure our CAD gets upgraded. We're going to continue to work with planning and zoning to develop in-house GIS, so that is a huge thing on our radar also. And again, to continue to make sure that we follow through on the work plan that has been developed by myself and the county administrator for the 911 center. Are there any questions?
You're busy again.
Yes.
She's always busy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, that ends the public appearances. Move on to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we have one speaker signed up, Chuck Mason, resident of Orange.
Greetings, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. This is not Town of Orange comment.
It's, and you guys are gonna be dealing with this later. It's about Roundton Farm. And I've known the Obers and Ellen and her husband for years. And anybody that ever cut a tree down in the town of Orange years ago would feel the wrath of Don Ober. But, I mean, I hope you all support their special use permit. However you work it out is your issue. I had 2 grandchildren go to their half-day camp. They had a great time. It was 9 to 12, 5 days. Last week, I believe it was. And the only thing I can tell you about the Obers is that I think they're very respectful of their neighbors, and they're very respectful of their property. And everything they've done down there has improved the property. And I just hope you all do what's necessary to let them continue doing what they're doing. Weddings, events like that bring people into Orange County and town. They have to stay overnight many times, and tourism is a clean industry. You guys know that. We all talk about clean industry. And I just hope whatever's going on as far as what you guys do with the land around the house where they're doing this is reasonable, and lets them continue doing what they're doing. And again, yes, they're personal friends. This is not the town of Orange telling me to show up. But yeah, we do like people coming into town, spending the night and eating food and doing whatever. So, but that's all I had to say. I mean, I really hope whatever you guys work out, and it's not anybody telling you what to do, it's just, I hope you do it, because these are good people, and if anything, whatever they're doing is not gonna ruin the rural character of Orange County and where they live. It's not gonna happen. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay. In that case, we'll move to board comment. Do you want to say anything else about fire hydrants? Okay.
Just have one comment. The county has made great strides in embracing technology and bringing this county up to the current day with technology. I'm just very upset that it has taken 25 years from the time that they came out with the first countywide true map book to get to the point where we might be able to have an accurate book for public safety response for the citizens of our county. That is, bottom line, that's all I care about, is that our system works so that anyone in this county that needs public safety gets a fast, efficient response. It's not hindered by a lead weight that's been riding around in a fire truck, an ambulance, or a sheriff's cruiser. And I'm done, sir.
Lee, Jim? I just have one comment. I was at Boosters Park on Saturday, and the fireworks show was spectacular, and everybody had a great time. It's a wonderful event the second time around, so hopefully we'll keep on going, and it was a good time. Y'all should come out. Except, of course, I know you have your own thing at the lake, so.
Yeah, I was out on the lake watching the fireworks.
Yeah, I've been out and done that with you. That's pretty cool too, so.
It's fun.
But that's all I have. All right, so with that, we will move on to the action items. First one is the SUP for Ellen Pater on behalf of Roundton Farms. Josh?
briefly, this is the application you guys tabled from your last meeting. I understand the applicants, they're here, and I know they've had correspondence with our county attorney regarding the issues that you guys raised last time. So that's it.
Okay.
I'll let the applicant to come back up if they would like to.
Anything in this memo we need to explain?
What, the map?
I mean, they've identified everything. I think so.
We need a motion to have discussion.
If you choose to so do so, yes.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to recommend this for approval.
Okay, I have a motion. Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second. Further discussion?
Yes. What Chuck was talking about, there was never any dispute whatsoever that y'all have been wonderful stewards of the land. What I am hoping does not happen is that VOF decides that they don't want to have a business on their land. For the county, I think it's absolutely wonderful. I truly do. I just hope that this doesn't turn into a nightmare because you're trying to do something that's good. I hope that everything goes smoothly, and I think it's a great idea. And you all are wonderful stewards of the land.
I guess I have a question for Tom with regard to this issue of VOF easements versus their use of the land. Is this consistent with what else is going on in the county?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, we have an easement on the property.
Right.
And we're using it for some commercial activity.
Was a conservation easement, we are not the holders of that easement.
Understand
so-
that, but I'm saying, is that true of other properties throughout the county, or have we constrained ourselves because of this? Or if, in other words, if the easement holder doesn't have a problem, that's probably the biggest thing. And from our standpoint, it's a good use of the property.
The best thing that could happen to the county is that everything in conservation easement went to commercial use, because then we can tax it at fair market value. So any precedent we're setting for ourselves is beneficial precedent.
Okay, so because in that part of the property being used for commercial use is being taxed at commercial, or at whatever the appropriate rate is.
It will be. That was one of the reasons it was, that
Okay.
it was deferred last time. If you look on the memo,
Okay,
there's a
so
map.
That's settled.
Yes.
I'm okay.
The only issue I have is actually, particularly the road, because they drive in and out of the road all the time anyway. I don't see that as being included. I could argue against the parking area, not for the actual barn, but the parking area is a hayfield, and the driveway is still a driveway. But that's the commissioner's job. As for what she actually decides.
Well, the reason that was, Mr. Chairman, the reason that was added was actually for protection of the applicants. If the parking area, the hayfield, isn't part of the SUP, theoretically, some neighbor down the road could say, hey, you're using this hayfield for commercial use, commercial parking, and your SUP doesn't cover it, and then they wind up in
No,
court.
I understand that part. My part would be more the concern of reassessing it to a higher value for something that's still a driveway 99% of the time.
And that'll be and I'm sure the commissioner's gonna take that into account when she values the property.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a distinction between the SUP covering them so they can use it versus what the commissioner needs to do in the reassessment. That I agree with Teal, the driveway's the driveway, you need a driveway regardless of this SUP. And so it should not trigger, in my view, I'm not the Commissioner of Revenue, but it doesn't appear that should trigger an assessment question.
No, I wouldn't think so. What it is, if you look on their graphic or their map, they have about 3 acres. So what the commissioner, I anticipate, will do is she'll take 3 acres and say, okay, what are these 3 acres worth with this SUP? And that'll be the
Right.
commissioner's call.
That's Renee's job. All right, okay, so, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. And by the way, when, years ago at the Presbyterian Church, your father's name was not Rebo, which is Don over backwards, but that's what we had for the little church group thing that he took care of us.
His sister gave him that name.
We had a lot of fun. Okay, next we have the award for the wireless point-to-point radio maintenance contract. Stephanie?
Good evening. In May, I released a solicitation for the wireless point-to-point radio maintenance services. We had a lot of interest at first, but it sort of dwindled down to one company giving us a proposal. They're the current vendor that we've had for the past 5 years. They've been very fair, very adequate, and we were actually able to negotiate them down a little bit, which pleased Larry's budget line. And if there are any questions, we would like to renew that contract.
So we only got one, and that's the current guy.
There were a lot of folks who showed interest who were either in different countries or different parts of the United States who could not respond within 3 hours, which is what we need if there's an emergency. So they were on our list to contact, but when it came down to their ability to actually work on our system and get to Orange County,
So
they
we have a
fell short.
3-hour response time for them to, if we got a problem, for them to show up?
For them to respond in some shape or form, whether or not that's calling Larry, initiating
And
something.
and there's nobody else that can,
No one that cared enough to respond.
We're nice people.
I know.
all right.
Okay.
I move we go ahead and authorize the agreement.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, next would be the Public Safety Telecommunications System Project. Brian?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you recall at your February 11th meeting, myself, Chief Harkness, 911 Director Nikki Tidy, and also Sheriff and Chief Deputy came to you all with, I guess, some resolve on working towards some solutions out in the Route 3 corridor because of coverage issues. And the board looked at a proposal from RCC Consultants to assess and provide some recommendations to correcting these near-term problems. And then this work would advance into kind of a midterm of there are some issues with the sheriff's power and digital system. And then kind of a third part of this is really starting to look at the ultimate change out of our current system into a new telecommunications system in advance of the federal requirement that we do change our system to meet federal requirements by 2018, I think is the standard. And so what you have before you today is the results of that work since that started, I guess, in February, late March. What we're doing is bringing to you RCC, and its Wayne Stack is with RCC is here, is going to walk you through some of the issues that were found, what the recommended solutions are for the Route 3 Lake of the Woods coverage, and then also we expanded this to include Clark Mountain because of a lot of the deficiencies that the sheriff and some of them are pretty significant deficiencies with the field deputies out in covering calls. So with that, you have the report that was provided under separate copy. Wayne's going to walk you through the recommendations. And lastly, the team that worked on this with RCC are here, and I certainly want to recognize Mike Lacasse and Nikki and John, but Mike was really the leader for the county side interfacing with Wayne. And I think
The real question I had for you earlier today is, does somebody on our staff understand it all?
and my immediate response.
And I see Sheriff Amos pointing to Mike Lacasse. That's the thing that gives me some confidence.
So we were in good hands, believe me. So with that, I'll pitch it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. My name is Wayne Stack. I am the Director of Project Management for the Mid-Atlantic region of RCC Consultants. RCC is an international communications consultancy. We are headquartered in Woodbridge, New Jersey. We have offices throughout the United States, 5, I believe, and we have individuals spaced throughout the United States who work out of their home and travel to client locations to handle whatever communications necessities there are. We've been tasked by the county to analyze proposed improvements for the Lake of the Woods area. As Mr. David said, we also looked at some Clark Mountain areas, but in relation to Lake of the Woods. Subsequent portions of the project look at expanding the effort into replacement systems or more permanent solutions, but we'll address those as we go through. With me here today is Dominic Arcuri. Dominic is Vice President and General Manager of RCC. Dominic handles the Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast, and the Midwest regions for RCC. I won't go through a lot of our experience here. It's in your packet, and I included it here simply so it would be in your packet, but I don't want to waste your time with a lot of what we do. In fact, what I've said so far is all I'm going to address with respect to who we are. I'll get into the meat of what we're doing here. We do have a lot of state-level clients, which you'll see here in red, varying from telephone-related projects to radio-related projects to data-related projects, and many states, all 3 of those. So the project tasks, as they were lined out for us, as we proposed and then were accepted by the county, to visit and inspect the Lake of the Woods site surrounding area to determine if other potential sites exist. This is in relation to the fact that there are communications issues associated with the Lake of the Woods area, the routes 3 and 20 intersection, and surrounding areas. To develop a computer simulation, we have in-house capability to develop computer models that will predict radio coverage, and we did that as part of this, and we'll talk about that subsequently in the presentation. To perform a drive test to measure and record the received signal levels, and this was actually an automated test where county personnel drove me specifically around portions of the county. I had a piece of test equipment in my lap that simulated a portable radio, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get further along. And then to research and identify other potential sites. So looking at the other alternatives to Lake of the Woods. So looking at the Lake of the Woods site, you'll see in this slide, and I assume you're seeing this here, is that correct? Okay. You'll see 2 orange triangles. The one in the middle, which is the rightmost, is the actual site, the radio tower that is in use right now for Lake of the Woods. We kept the other one in there because that's where currently the county is licensed by the FCC to be. There is no tower there. It's a mistake on the license, and it's relatively easy to correct that.
It's an interesting place to start the discussion. We have no tower.
Right. Well, your system is performing better than where there are no towers. So, so we'll look at the bright side of that. But that shows you the lower right orange triangle shows you where the existing tower is for Lake of the Woods. This is a different view, and Google Earth does work for us here in Orange County. So this is showing you a pinpoint of exactly where that tower sits. I didn't go closer than this, I believe, but could have, and in subsequent slides for some of the alternative sites, I have gone a little closer to give you a better feel. Those potential alternative sites were a tower that exists currently on Van Kloos Road, and one that is called different things, but actually when we visited the tower, there was a technician crew out there that day, and throughout their environment, they refer to it as the Wilderness Trail Tower. We will address those in a little more detail later. This is an expansion of the slide you saw a couple seconds ago. You see the two original orange triangles, now with two additional. The one on the far right is the Van Kloos Tower. The one at the bottom is the Wilderness Trail Tower.
Real quick, just for people that are very familiar with the area, that N got flipped upside down, should be a U, it's Vaucluse.
I'm sorry?
Vaucluse Road rather than Van Kloos. It
Oh.
should be VAU.
Oh, okay. So there's an L in there then, or? Oh, Vaucluse. Oh, okay. Well, I apologize. Throughout our report, it is misspelled.
Okay, well,
So-
there were a lot of looks of,
we all-
where is that road, so.
Okay, I'm
We
sorry.
knew the road.
We are consistent in our error.
Excellent.
So it's only one error.
Right. So looking at the Vaucluse Road Tower, this shows a picture of Route 3 and portion of the Lake of the Woods. In the red circle is a little speck. The road that runs next to that little speck is Vaucluse Road. And this is a close-up where we did delve down. That is the existing facility on Vaucluse Road. These are all Google Earth graphics. Wilderness Trail, same thing. This is Route 20 going through the middle of the picture, southwest to northeast. Right down the center of the picture appears to be a line. That is a clearing for power lines. And the tower in the little speck in the center of the red is the Wilderness Trail Tower accessed off the power line easement.
What type of tower are those? The cell towers, or what are they?
They both appear to be carrying, Vaucluse is definitely carrying cell traffic. The Wilderness Trail appears to be, but sometimes it's easily mistaken for some other traffic. The Vaucluse Tower is a shorter tower. They're both self-supporting towers as opposed to guide towers. The Vaucluse appears to be a lower tower and more heavily loaded than Wilderness Trail. Wilderness Trail has more real estate available on the tower itself as well as in the compound at the base, but it is a little bit further. As you can see in this, all the way down at the bottom there next to the power line easement. So the signal that it throws isn't as dense as the signal that would be thrown from either Lake of the Woods or Vaucluse. I'm gonna have to get used to that, I'm sorry.
You're doing very good at it.
For the Lake of the Woods area, which was our emphasis here. Jumping back down now. And that is the Wilderness Trail Tower. You know, on second thought, I just misspoke. This is a guide tower as opposed to a self-supporting tower. I maintained a north-up orientation for all of these, so this is the satellite view, and at the top of the picture is north, and I didn't deviate from that for any of these. The predicted coverage maps. What we see here is the results of our analysis, our computer analysis, based on all of the information that we gathered and all of the information that we predict for this. We've done this in worst-case scenarios from our prediction perspective. Namely, we looked at portable radios talking from the field into the tower, portable being handheld radios as opposed to vehicular-mounted mobile radios, or as opposed to the tower talking outbound to the field units. So the color that you see here is small in relation to the slide, but the reason that's so is we maintained the same scale throughout because we also plotted outbound, we plotted inbound, and we plotted inbound with mobile as opposed to portable. So this represents the current Lake of the Woods tower with the recommended configuration, and we'll get into those recommendations further down in the presentation. The reason why we presented it in this format is because, as you'll see, we can do an A-B comparison by me toggling back and forth between this. This is the Lake of the Woods tower. You can see the denser, more dark areas in the center represent a higher signal strength, more saturation of radio frequency energy. And as it gets further out, it gets a little more sparse, and you can see that with the gold color. It's tough for me to see on this slide, and I'm not sure what you're seeing on that slide, but there is a color legend there that probably wouldn't mean a whole lot to you because it is in DAQ, which is delivered audio quality. We explain that in the report, but basically closer is more dense, further, as would be expected, is less dense.
That's a good question.
Sure.
You say this is with the changing a configuration to your recommendation.
Yes, specifically.
And how does that compare to the existing? In terms of, did you run the model of the existing configuration?
We did. We didn't include that in here, though.
Okay.
I can follow up because I have that on my computer.
I don't need to see it. When you did your drive test, how did that compare with your model for the existing configuration?
We actually used the results of the drive test to calibrate our model. One of the capabilities of our software program, which is developed in-house, it was completely written from the first line of code by RCC software programmers, is the ability to actually gather measurements the way we did, feed them into the software program, let the software program import that data and modify itself so that it makes the changes necessary to reflect that data accurately. So everything you see here, all of that calibration has already been done. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, sir.
I'm comfortable with that. I would like to see at a larger scale that, and I don't need to see it this time, but I would, when you provide the other information, or is that in the report? With and without the?
They are in the report.
Okay,
Those graphics are in the report. So when I say with RMC recommended configuration, one of the items we found at the Lake of the Woods site affected the capability of the site to receive traffic from the field. Basically, there's an amplifier in there that would amplify the inbound signals from the field, but that amplifier is disconnected. That perplexed us because typically an amplifier would be connected in that. And in addition to the amplifier, there would be a filter. It's a package deal called a receive multicoupler. One component of that RMC, which is what this stands for, is a filter that narrows the frequency band that is going to be amplified. And then the other component of that RMC is the amplifier itself. Right now,
is it functional? Will it function?
It appears to be. We spoke with Clear Communications, which is the county's service provider for radio communications. They claimed that when it was put in originally, a lot of interference cropped up. So it was taken out of service. It was put in just to amplify those signals, but it brought in so much interference that it was decommissioned, taken out of service. It still sits there ready to be plugged in. We have no reason to think it won't work. One of our concerns is that the filter component, that other half of it, is not there, and we have no indication that states that it ever was. One of our recommendations is put that filter in. That's designed to be used together. The manufacturer confirmed that neither is designed to work independently from the other.
What's the age of that equipment? I mean, is it still modern enough to be functional and all that?
Yes,
It's not
we
an
actually,
antique.
I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Not an antique. We have some antiques around.
Oh, no, this is completely serviceable. We contacted the manufacturer of the equipment. We explained the situation to them. They confirmed that this wasn't meant to operate standalone. It was meant to operate in concert with its other half, the filter. They gave us.
And you've verified the filter is not there.
The filter is not there.
Okay.
Now, whether it sits somewhere else, whether it's in the shop at Clear Communications just to make more room at the radio site, we don't know that at this point. We do have a meeting set up with Clear Communications. I say we, Chief Deputy Lacasse, Nikki, RCC, and Clear Communications to ask these kind of questions and to learn more about historical data. In fact, we did find another piece just Friday that Clearfield is in on, and that will become part of that discussion also, and I think we addressed that a little further. So this shows the situation with the receive multi-coupler. I'm going to jump back to, or I'm going to toggle now to the Vaucluse site. And this is just shifting that slightly. You can see the lake on this, whereas I'm going to bounce back to the other one. The radio coverage sort of covers the lake here. Now I'm going to toggle between the two, and you can see the difference in coverage between the two. Again, our concern was the area right around Lake of the Woods and the Route 3 and 20 intersection, routes 3 and 20 intersection area. So these were the two primary towers that we looked at there. The third tower was the Wilderness Trail Tower, and as you'll see, that sits quite a bit farther. Now I'm going to whereas it has a larger area of coverage, that area of coverage is translated to the southwest from the Lake of the Woods vicinity and from the routes 3 and 20 intersection. I'm going to toggle between Vaucluse and Lake of the Woods now, and Wilderness Trail now, and you can see that they really do have a different coverage area, whereas now at Vaucluse, toggling between that and Lake of the Woods, they generally cover the same area, one a little better than the other. Part of looking at whether or not it makes sense to move to an alternative tower always would be cost. What would be the capital expenditure to move there? What would be the ongoing expenditure in the form of lease fees? We don't know whether an agreement exists or whether, as part of the permit for the tower, the county required the tower owner to provide free space to the county. Frequently, that is the case, but frequently the tower owners know that most of the time the political entities won't realize that they'll also need actual physical ground real estate for shelters and for cabling and generator and that sort of thing. And it will say, we need tower space on the ordinance, and we get that free, but then they ding you by saying, sure, we'll give that to you free, but if you want to shelter there, then
Careful on our next tower permits.
watch your wallet, right? So this is the
Now,
results.
When you were looking at the Vaucluse Tower and the Wilderness Tower, you were assuming that you had the appropriate amplifier and filter in there?
Yes, for those, since they don't exist, we looked at provisioning them the way they should be provisioned.
All right.
So that's the result that we found, and we go into more detail than this in the actual study, which I believe you've all been provided with. We can modify this in any way that's necessary. If we want to look at this also is in worst case scenario. So we look at the fact that there will be environmental clutter, meaning trees, foliage on the trees, the factors that would affect coverage in radio system. And we'll see later on that in the drive test, that does become a factor very quickly. And so what you see here is worst case scenario, looking at it a public safety grade as opposed to a commercial grade system, where reliability and availability isn't required to as great a degree as public safety does.
Can you characterize the three different levels there? What we're seeing is what blue, red, and yellow.
Yes.
The difference in capability or quality or whatever. I mean, if you're outside, let me ask the question this way: if you're outside the blue area, do you still have an acceptable level of and a workable level of communication with
Yes.
the portable devices?
Yes, this is based on DAQ 3.4. Without getting overly technical, that's part of a TIA-EIA specification for land mobile radio systems. DAQ stands for Delivered Audio Quality. 3.4 is a recommended in that publication as a public safety grade audio quality, which basically means some noise and distortion
read
on the
numbers.
signal, but very occasionally will repeats be necessary.
So blue or red would be in the acceptable level, yellow not.
The blue is analog, meaning the system that you have right now, that Fire has right now is an analog system.
Oh, okay, I can't remember, it's, one's analog, okay. one's
And the other
digital.
is digital.
Yeah, okay.
The red is digital. 12 is analog without a DAQ, I'm sorry, yellow is analog without a DAQ 3.4. That's a 12 dB SNAD, which is how much noise is on the signal. Hard to speak in layman's terms here because it does get technical, but basically in old systems, you could tell you were getting farther away from a base site, therefore having weaker signal by how much hissing and sort of bacon frying sounding you had on the radio. 12 dB SNAD is a representation of that effect.
You describe it in your report as understandable with effort, frequent repetition due to noise distortion.
Right. And at this point, we looked at that strictly from a comparison perspective because we don't expect that anything that you would implement would be analog in nature, that you would be using a 12 dB SNAD signal. But that does give you an indication of where you can get that type of performance, and that's at the fringes of this coverage area.
Well, it looks like the range there is on the order of a mile in radius, or maybe even diameter.
You know, I didn't think to put a scale on here. I can certainly do that though and give you a good estimate for all three of these.
Probably about 2 miles.
2 miles, so mile radius, okay. I'm just trying to get some feel for the area.
Mhm.
It's a relatively small area, it
Right.
appears.
And again, this is inbound from a portable radio, which is the worst case situation simply because the portable, whereas outbound you have anywhere from 45 to 100 watts from the base station and a gain antenna. The portable radio, you have 3 watts going back to the base station. So there's a quantum difference between portable radio power output and base station power output. The mobile radios typically will be from the 30 to 45 watt range. So they are much better in transmitting into the station. But again, we look at worst case scenario for this. And that's what we would design for too if we were to be designing a system. So one quick go through again. This is the Lake of the Woods tower, the Vaucluse tower, and the Wilderness Trail tower. Moving on to the drive test, we measured signal as if they were received by a portable radio. And this is an outbound test only, simply because to do an inbound test, we would have had to have a county team at the dispatch center. We would have had to take a channel off the air and have them receiving traffic and verifying traffic real time from the field. So what we were able to do in the field was listen to the traffic that's already coming from the outbound signals. We actually had Clear Communications turn on one of the fire frequencies full-time, just 100% duty cycle, and we were able to capture that. The sheriff frequency is digital, and because this frequency is split into 2 parts, one part is voice, one part is GPS data, the GPS data is almost constant. So for all intents and purposes, that was turned on all the time, and we were able to measure that. To give you a feel for the type of measurements, we took in excess of 512 samples of those readings every second. So in one of the days, we had 111,000 samples of data. This was a 3-day drive test. One of the days we had 111,000 samples. I believe the other 2 days were in the high 60,000 range. This, though, was performed in best case scenarios because the test occurred in late March when there was very little, if any, foliage on the trees. Foliage attenuates radio signals. As the signal passes through trees, the signal is reduced in intensity. And without foliage on the trees, the maximum amount of signal passes through. With foliage on the trees, a lesser amount passes through. So
Okay,
we've been...
You ran your test and you compared it with the least foliage situation into your model, and then you came back and put the foliage back in when you gave us the results here.
Actually, this is only best case scenario. We're actually going to repeat the test, or we're discussing repeating the test now in full foliage.
Okay.
And
But you use the results of the least foliage and your model assumed no foliage.
Yes,
when you did that.
to
Okay.
calibrate it, right. Right, that was, and that was part of the calibration process to determine exactly the conditions under which the test was conducted. And then the calibration was done accordingly. So performed in best case conditions, March with least foliage. We have a different color code for this just because that's the way how the computer did it. We have 5 color codes. The ones that we want to pay attention to most here are black and red because those are the ones that are either completely unusable signals or mostly unusable with occasional useful signals. The rest of them are either always good or mostly good signals. So diving into this now, this is a countywide map of the test area. These are, and this is obviously an eye chart. I do have the capability, in fact, I have printouts here in e-size that show this, and I do zoom in subsequent slides here. The Lake of the Woods is in the upper right. You can see the loop around the Lake of the Woods. You can see the intersection of routes 3 and 20, and I'm going to jump into that right now. This is Lake of the Woods, and I'm just, same data, I've just zoomed in. This is the sheriff's office, and you can see all the black and red in there. Once again, black is non-usable signal. And this, remember, is best case scenario, and it's outbound from the tower, so high power from the tower. So inbound from the portable radio in full foliage conditions would be much worse than this. So this, it really brings into stark relief here the fact that improvements need to be made here, and the folks that are using the field radios are at risk.
3 and 20 is all black.
Red or black?
I just went through this again because I'm jumping into fire rescue now. Fire rescue, you can see Lake of the Woods is a much better situation because, again, we're outbound from the tower, and there is a tower right there, whereas Sheriff's radio system is located at Clark Mountain, which is sort of central in the county, so it has to throw its signal all the way to Lake of the Woods. So a stronger signal at Lake of the Woods outbound from the tower for fire rescue. The large red section and black section in the center stems from the fact that on that particular drive day, the local transmitter wasn't turned on. The Lake of the Woods transmitter was still turned on, and that central area is not within the coverage area of the Lake of the Woods transmitter. So this is all part of what we will redo here. I do come in closer for this now. Again, you see reds and blues, greens and blues here. Good signal, a spattering of yellow, and then as we get further away from Lake of the Woods, it starts to get into worse coverage. Again, as you go more to the left, it starts to, what it is affected by is the fact that the transmitter was not turned on to serve that area. So the drive test, I do have large scale PDF drawings of this that can be zoomed way in, much closer than here, and I'm providing that to the project team, and they can certainly provide you copies with all of that. So from a Lake of the Woods perspective for recommendations, we recommend that the existing currently disconnected amplifier be reconnected. We recommend that the bandpass filter be put in, sometimes called a pre-selector, that's made to work with the amplifier. The two are not made to work separately. We recommend that the locations of the transmit and receive antennas be swapped. Right now they're on the same tower, but the transmit is high and the receive is low. And because we have a receive issue, we recommend putting the transmitter low and the receiver high, which just gets it that much more unobstructed to able to receive.
What's the normal configuration?
Typically receive high, the receiver up
Yeah, I
above.
was was there a design criteria at some point that reversed?
We found out on Friday, again, historical knowledge from Clear Communications, that they originally had installed it with the receive antenna high and the transmit antenna low, but complaints came in from the field that they couldn't hear the dispatch center very well, so it was switched. Our feeling is that it's always best when we design a system, or when a system is designed, that it be designed for balance. The talk out from the base station to the field units is equal to the talk in, so you don't get into a mismatch of capability. Sometimes that has to happen, and in those cases, we always recommend that the inbound take priority. In other words, we favor the inbound. The alternative to that is a user in the field with an outbound priority may be able to still hear the dispatcher and think that they're in coverage, but when they try to talk, they're really out of coverage. And if that's a critical situation where they're confident that they have coverage, they have the possibility of no response from dispatch because dispatch can't hear them when they expected them to. So we always recommend, and our recommendations are based from our experience with our user base over the years, where I can't think of a single one that has requested that the transmit be prioritized over the receive. The outbound from the tower be prioritized over the inbound from the field. So we recommend that, but given that information that we found out on Friday, we recommend that the first two be implemented and see what that does for the ability to talk back in. If that solves the talk-in problem, then there's no reason to swap the antennas. We won't have to change anything to do with the transmit antenna location versus the receive antenna location. But if it doesn't solve the problem, then we can look at what we can do to swap those. And we also recommend that because the antennas have the least sensitivity in the vertical position, both off the top of the antenna and off the bottom, that we put them right underneath one another. That way the transmitter won't be talking into the receive antenna and then down into the receive system to cause interference. Right now, they're on the same tower, but they're offset somewhat. So whereas this is a null straight up from the transmit antenna, there is some energy heading off to the side, not as much as it prioritizes the horizon, so not as much as that, but there is some energy. So we recommend placing them one above the other, and that's a matter of a mechanical sidearm that connects to the leg of the tower and just translates the antenna.
Now, this
over.
doesn't help the sheriff at all, though.
No, because the sheriff has no presence at Lake of the Woods. There is sheriff equipment at Lake of the Woods, but it's equipment that is legacy equipment that was in use prior to their current generation of equipment. So the antennas would still be able to operate. A lot of the infrastructure that's there would still be able to operate if the sheriff's department were to populate Lake of the Woods Tower with sheriff equipment. It would require new base station equipment and a little bit of new infrastructure. For what we've looked at here, items 1 through 4, we're projecting a cost of less than $10,000. These are not expensive in the realm of radio frequency. So we looked at Clark Mountain because that is where the sheriff is located. There's a lack of a pre-selector. There is an amplifier in place, but there is no filter in front of the amplifier. Again, the manufacturer states unequivocally that they're meant to work together. They're not meant to work separately. We recommend that the pre-selector be put in there. Because of the frequency scheme there, at Lake of the Woods, the transmitter antenna, the transmitter frequencies are in one section of the band. The receive frequencies are at the other section of the band. It's easy to get a filter that handles just the receive frequencies or just the transmit frequencies to prevent transmitter energy from going into the receiver. At Clark, there are two frequencies. They're separated, but there are two frequencies that receiver frequencies that sit in the middle of the transmitter frequencies. Because of that, the filter itself is much more complex than the filter would be for Lake of the Woods. And we're expecting it would be less than $15,000, but for Lake of the Woods, it wouldn't even approach that. So that is what contributes to the inflated price here with respect to Lake of the Woods, simply the complexity of the filter because of those two frequencies that are interleaved with the transmit frequencies. We confirmed with the sheriff that two of their frequencies perform differently despite the fact that they are transmitted. They transmit from and are received at the same site. When we looked at how it was configured, we found one of the frequencies coming into a splitter, which cuts, without getting technical, probably by a factor of 4 the receive capability. That one went to the receiver. The second frequency came into that same splitter, then went to a second splitter, which reduced that factor of 4 by another factor of 4, and then went to its receiver. We don't have an answer for why that is. Our recommendation is that we resolve that issue because there is an imbalance there. And we did confirm with the Sheriff's Department that they do see that in their daily operations. One of the frequencies works much better than the other. They can receive much better with one than the other. So that was very predictable. A service visit by your service provider, your communication service provider, should easily be able to reconfigure that, and that would be a 1 day at most for 2 people, 1 day visit, and so we're projecting $1,000 to correct that. Also, for each of the receivers, a crystal filter, which is a very sharp filter, usually meant to notch out one particular offending signal, as opposed to a group of offending signals, are in line. Crystal filters work excellently, but they have a lot of loss, and we can't see, based on our measurements, what they're trying to notch out. So one of the things we'd like to do is speak with Clear, and that's what caused us to set up the meeting with the stakeholders here and Clear Communications to try to get a feel for why those sit there. If they're not absolutely necessary, then removal of those would increase the signal quite a bit, the received signal quite a bit.
Were those add-ons, or were they part of the manufacturer's?
No, these are separate pieces that sit outboard from the receivers, and again, we're not sure. We don't have the benefit of historical data the way Clear does, because they've been servicing the equipment for quite some time. So we will be speaking with them. I believe our meeting is set for the 10th, and we'll be speaking with them about these particular issues. Getting toward the end of this, we want to stress that everything that we've recommended here are interim solutions. We have to emphasize that they're not long-term solutions. They're solutions that can be implemented immediately to provide immediate benefit, noticeable difference in capability at these sites. But what they won't do is solve or correct inherent deficiencies in the radio system. What that would take would be a much more involved analysis and potential redesign of the radio system. So we wanted to point that out at this point. And with that, I'm happy to take questions or provide any additional information if necessary.
When you say that solving the problems requires a significant redesign, is that something we should do when we start to implement the new required procedures from the FCC as opposed to anything prior to that?
What we would recommend would be a process. Everything I've discussed here was task 1 of 5 tasks that were identified. RCC received a notice to proceed for task 1. The remaining 4 tasks are generally what would round out what we refer to as a needs analysis to determine current capability of your system, how that meets your current requirements, and what needs to be done to implement whatever needs to be implemented to provide what you currently require. We refer to those as functional and performance requirements. That's what we would identify in a full needs analysis. We typically would recommend a 3-phase approach, number 1 being the needs analysis. This is a subset. What we've done so far is a subset of a full-blown needs analysis. Phase 2 would be a procurement phase where technical specifications are developed in preparation for a request for proposal to the vendor community for a system. We typically recommend that we approach that from the perspective of, again, performance and functionality, as opposed to hand them a design, because the vendors have their own capabilities, they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and going along with that are the costs from individual vendors. So we recommend that that you release a performance spec and a functionality spec, and let the vendors decide how they can meet those specs, how they design a system to meet those specs. They'll do that at their best ability from a technical perspective and from a cost perspective, assuming it's a competitive procurement. They'll be battling one another and recognize what one another will likely to propose. So at the end of the procurement and execution of a contract with a vendor, then phase 3 would be implementation. So that would be implementation of a design system, something that during the procurement phase, the evaluation would occur as to whether it's compliant with the technical specifications, with the performance specs, with the functionality specs, how compliant it is, how the cost generally as part of the procurement. We do an entire matrix of scoring for, these are, the technical spec might run 200 pages, and the proposal much more than that. So it's not something that you can sit down and just get a seat of the pants feel for. You usually have to have a matrix that is set up that quantitatively scores each individual item, and then you just compare the scores at the end. That's usually a team effort. Everybody does it separately and then brings it together and discusses one another's. But that's a procurement issue there. And then implementation after that. And typically for a system like this, to get a design system like this, the procurement phase would take probably 9 months, which would include a 3-month response period for the vendors to develop their proposal. That would include the, well, chronologically, it would include the development of technical specifications, the release of the RFP, a 3-month response period, a period to evaluate the proposals, and then the negotiations with the vendor. So 9 months for that. Typically, to implement a system like this would be in the 15 to 18-month range, which would allow the vendor time to manufacture the system, to do whatever field work is necessary, and to install and test the system, cut over. So,
Given what you found so far, or can we get by with the changes that you've recommended? Will that carry us the 15 months that we need, or are we in a situation where we have to take other measures like move the sheriff some capability to Lake of the Woods Tower or these kind of things? Or can we limp along for 15 months with the fixes that you've recommended so far?
We expect improvements with these fixes. Whether there'll be improvements that will get the users to the point where they need to be, we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens when we'll have to evaluate the results of actually implementing these. It should be pretty easy to determine that, yes, these do meet the needs and we can move ahead. I think the biggest thing to look at is avoiding delay of the follow-on. And it's not this, we're talking about $15,000, $10,000 for this. For a procurement of a design system, we're in a whole different ballpark.
Caroline just did theirs for $12 million, so that there's a financing part to this that would parallel how many years
Right.
out before we could afford to.
And there are a lot of variables there. Stafford County recently put one in for $25 million. That was actually, what contributed to that was a decision by the Board of Supervisors in Stafford, that there would be no new towers in the county. Only existing towers and both self-supporting large tall towers as well as cell towers would be used. So since there weren't that many tall towers, cell towers being relatively small were the candidates, and because they're small and don't throw their signal far, there had to be a lot of them. So there turned out to be 13 radio sites for a relatively small county, and that obviously added to the cost. So, and that's of course just a consideration based on locality to locality, what's most important to the localities. But yes, 12 million, 24 million, a whole different ball game than 25,000 or so.
Yeah.
This is where we'll use our elevation or topography to our advantage,
Right, right.
because of our elevation changes.
Mhm.
Our mountains.
If I could make one comment, when we're talking about the radio channels, the channel that operates really well is the one that the two towns operate off of. So that's a little small rectangle where we have the very large one. And so that's our issue with that. As far as the interim fixes that this would do, I mean, you can see from our perspective what we're looking at from our radio system on where it sits. I think the chief and I have volunteered to do the next drive test after learning how to work the equipment. So hopefully we can get things moving.
Which, yeah, let me add, RCC is step right up and is allowing, basically loaning their equipment after some training, and because Wayne said, well, there's no reason why you all can't drive and just collect the data for us and then give us the equipment back, and then you'll import it to your software and do it back in the shop instead of sending out personnel, RCC personnel, and paying an hourly rate for them to do that. And so that was something they offered up very quickly.
And as I understand it, if we make the changes to fire rescue, we can then do an analysis on whether there's an improvement for fire rescue before we actually migrate sheriff's office equipment onto that tower. If there is an improvement, I can say that Clear Communications originally, I started this 2 years ago with Clear, trying to get a quote on moving a tower, establishing some equipment for us down in that area of the county. Originally it was $12,500, and it's migrated north of that over the last 2 years. The last thing that I had for it was pulled off the table as a quote when we elected to hire RCC. However, they did allow me to at least say what the overall cost would be without a complete breakdown. And so if we were to see a improvement in migrating sheriff's equipment down there, you'd be looking at probably an additional $65,000 to $70,000, and that would be purchasing the digital equipment to go on the tower. It would also be an improvement of the sheriff's office dispatch center to accommodate a different channel. And as I understand it, what that would do for us is when deputies went down into that area, or anybody for that matter, state police have our portable radios, game wardens have our portable radios, so we try to provide them with a way to communicate with us. When they go down there, they would actually have to change the channel on the radio, but knowing that you're in an area where Clark may or may not work real well, it would probably be beneficial for them when they're working down in those areas to switch the channel to LOW and let dispatch center know that they're going to be operating off a different tower.
Wouldn't it be more useful to see what the improvements to the Clark Tower would do for you down there, and see, as opposed to spending $65 to upgrade the Lake of the Woods Tower for them?
Yes, sir. It would be, and I think that's what we're planning on doing. Is we're going to do the test now, and then we're going to make the changes, and then do another
But
test.
if the Clark Tower doesn't solve your problems at Lake of the Woods, then there's this other option.
Yes, sir. And I mean, from what you're looking at, you're going from pretty pitiful radio signal now. We make the changes at Clark, it's still going to have the distance factor, and it's still going to have all the issues with trees and leaves and all that other. So I think it'll be worth seeing what kind of a difference it makes. And if it doesn't, I just wanted to give you an idea of what we'd be looking at equipment-wise.
Right. Chief Deputy Lucas and I have talked about this, kind of the trajectory that we're on is we'll do these drive tests with full foliage, see how it works, make the changes at LOWN at Clark Mountain, and if it doesn't work, then we'll look at installation of digital equipment at LOW for the sheriff at $60,000. We now have budgeted, Glenda, close to $300,000. I think I'm about right on that. So we have money budgeted for this project. Certainly, it's not for the overall project, but it can get us into this kind of midterm solution while we start the process of the larger design system.
And we also would need to know at that point, if we spend the $60,000, are we getting any return long-term for that, or is that completely discarded, which would be my guess when you go to the new system?
It would be unlikely that there would be any equipment reuse in a new system.
Yeah.
But a new system, again, would be a whole different ballgaming capability. There wouldn't be no switching of channels for the user. It would be transparent for the user with a design system as they rolled from the coverage area of Clark into the coverage area of the Lake of the Woods 3 and 20 area, the system itself would control what frequencies are being used, and with the radio itself would, transparent to the user, be able to do that.
And one other important consideration with this other system is also moving this from just a voice system to a voice and data system, so that we can take care of wireless data broadband, which also has a whole another application with last mile broadband for the county as an economic development initiative. So we jump up the technology continuum considerably,
Well,
but it is a stranded capital expense.
And there's another layer that potentially complicates it, but it could be a benefit as well. Their surrounding counties are interested as well. They're facing some of the same issues that we are and looking to expand. I know Louisa in particular, I've had several conversations with a couple of their board members, and they're saying, can't we do something and collaborate, and because the towers and signals don't care where the county borders are, so.
That's right. And if you can work in concert, there are economies of scale too. There are central brains, for lack of a better term, for these systems. They're actually core controllers. But a core controller from your system would be able to handle the system for Louisa or adjacent counties. So cost sharing would be a real possibility there. You would avoid having to each duplicate the core controllers by them buying one and you buying one.
And those are expensive pieces?
Yes, yes.
Apparently very
Albemarle County is in the early stages of looking at replacing their system. So timing may be synergistic. We don't know specifically what they have in mind, but we know that they are starting to look at that. So there may be situations where towers located close to the borders of different counties can throw their signals into both counties and avoid more towers and operate from fewer towers. So again, economies of scale there.
Yeah, Rappahannock, Fauquier, and Culpeper are now in a joint procurement for design, and I've already talked to a couple of my counterparts there, and I think after hearing the presentation tonight, kind of commits my resolve. I may use my, just this board's interest in calling together all my counterparts in all these jurisdictions, and maybe just have a quick kind of where's everybody, and wouldn't it make sense to work together on this? Understanding we're going to come at this a little bit different on the timeline, but if we coordinate our effort and we're buying kind of the same system, then we're getting economy of scale on the procurement by maybe selecting one vendor, and that vendor then can distribute the costs across a lot of jurisdictions. Two, on the service back end, you're getting economy of scales because you're having the service of the same technical equipment. It's just timing the acquisition of it. Each locality be a little bit different. So
we also
the county is in the same process as well.
yeah, I understand. I just found that out the other
Who's
day.
that?
Fluvanna. We also have some common interest. I serve on the Lake Anna Advisory Committee, and there's a constant discussion that goes on with that group with Spotsy, Louisa, and Orange because of the lake being there and the need for communication and fire and rescue, everything else associated with all the homes around the lake as well as the lake itself. And so there's a common problem area, if you will, that gets a lot of discussion and attention. Nothing's been done about it yet, but so there might be. I don't know what Spotsy's up to these days, but it's.
They just and they're installing a new radio system. They went with the Harris system.
Harris.
I do know that Greene County and Madison County each got the Moto Turbo system, similar to what we have. And speaking of my counterparts, I know they're having the same problems that we're having. So, both I think I spoke to somebody with Madison Fire Rescue this morning after the exercise with North Anna, and he was saying they're having exactly the same problems we are. They're not able sometimes to communicate using mobile radios, let alone portable radios. So they're in the same boat we are. So.
Absolutely could be a regional.
Well, let me try to pull something together fairly quickly to at least get everybody from Fauquier south to Fluvanna, Louisa, certainly contact Spotsy, and then Madison Green, basically, and see where everybody is, and maybe there's at least some unity of effort on this. And I can report back to the board what I find out.
Well, I thank you for making a presentation that helped me understand this report a little better.
Clear as mud, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Started off good and then it went.
Just
like that, I don't understand. So.
One other logistic is that we're gonna go ahead and proceed with the implementing the recommendations, and once we find out, we'll bring a status report back to the board. And then also what I will do is since we're already under procurement with them for these phases, once we get through that part of this, then I'll start a notice to proceed on the second phase.
Okay.
Right? Looking at, okay, good.
So nothing else to do with that at the moment?
No, sir.
Okay.
No action by the board.
All right, next then, fee donation request for the annual Orange County Fair.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. The last one we will do after closed meeting. When is dinner set? Dinner's here. Well, in that case, I think we should go into closed meeting.
All right. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters: consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to Section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussion may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Orange County is hereby authorized discussion of the aforesaid matters in closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are enclosed. Do we have a projected time to come back so that the press knows?
The eating's ready? All right, to the best of your knowledge, were the only matters discussed in the closed meeting public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. Need a roll call.
Mrs. Ads, who's absent. Mr. Crozier.
Aye.
Mr. White.
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin.
Aye.
And Mr. Frame.
Aye.
Okay, we're back in regular meeting then. Next item up would be 7E, scheduling of special election for District 1 Supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, all I'm asking, as you know, the Supervisor Abs has resigned her position effective July 31st. Pursuant to state law, the Board of Supervisors is required to file a petition with the Circuit Court asking the Circuit Court to schedule a special election. And so all I'm asking for is the authorization to go ahead and file that petition now. And doing it now will allow it to get onto the November ballot, so there won't need to be a different date. And
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then also we will, did you want to address that or do you want me to go do it? Go ahead, you do it more eloquently.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to. This is it's the board's desire to accept letters of interest from qualified candidates to be considered for appointment as the interim supervisor for District 1. Applications letters of interest will be accepted by my office beginning tomorrow, Wednesday, July 9th, through close of business, 5 p.m. on July 28th. It is in the board's intent to have a continued meeting at 6 p.m. on July 29th to consider those candidates who have submitted letters of interest. At that meeting, the board will give approximately 5 minutes to each candidate to appear in an open meeting to express their interest and qualifications for appointment by this board, at which time the board will take those under advisement. It may have a closed meeting session to consider those candidates and then look at potential appointment, but it is a discretionary matter as provided in law. So I think that generally gets the gist of what the direction was of the board.
Yes.
We will be announcing this through all of our media channels. But again, just to recap the dates, beginning tomorrow through close of business on Monday, July 28th, my office will accept letters of interest from qualified candidates in District 1, and those letters of interest will be provided to the Board of Supervisors as received.
Okay. So now we would move on to appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. Does anybody have any?
Not I.
No, nor I.
I've been working for the, get somebody for the BZA, but I've got a couple of candidates I'm still working on.
What happened to Jenny? What happened to Jenny?
She resigned.
Okay. All right, discussion items, projects for VDOT 6-year improvement program. Josh.
Three times in one night.
You the only one doing any work in that?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Greg comes in his lounge shirt. Yeah, as long as we're saying it to your face, you're okay. Nice tattoo. Okay, Josh.
All right. You guys have in your packet the memo that we produced. As I'm sure most of you know, the RRRC, they work with VDOT to arrange projects to be placed on the 6-year improvement plan. They annually, around this time of the year, they do this kind of back and forth until they decide on projects to coordinate with VDOT. So we're at the point now where they're asking for recommendations from localities on what they'd like to be put on, which would be the 2015 iteration of the 6-year plan. Staff's assembled, as you can see in the memo, 4 different projects that are based on actually included in our current comprehensive plan, and then 4 others that were in studies that were referenced and included by reference in our comprehensive plan. So we're just asking for comments or suggestions from the board on what you'd like to proceed with.
One other note, if you noted, there are 2 roads, Flatwin Road and the relocated Route 20, that, as we've been communicating during our area plan updates, are 2 major facilities that are part of the area plan that's being drafted. So we wanted this opportunity to at least start getting it on VDOT's radar screen, as they suggested we do so.
And I don't know if VDOT would be open to it, but possibly move Flat Run Road up on their priorities due to that increased traffic that they have through there. I don't know if they would do that or not, but.
I don't think it's even on there.
No, but that's what I'm saying is.
Based on the discussion we had with them, I don't think they know it exists even.
Yeah, they don't know it exists as an issue, so it's not a matter of moving it on to it's moving it up, it's moving it on to the thing, and I think this would do that.
Okay.
I would say that this is the kind of the first step in the process of getting it into the So with
Are we taking any action on this, or we just?
the board's concurrence right now is fine. If the list looks good to you.
I'm okay with it.
Yep, so
Me too.
All right.
If you're gonna add anything else, it would be that, the turn lane at Tower Road. That's a tough one. Kendall has got a long view. Mine Run's got a long view. Tower Road doesn't.
It's a fair amount of congestion through there as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm actually a little concerned about moving that Village Road intersection 250 feet south. I don't know how you would do that, but I mean, it sounds good to say it, but
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
not gonna happen.
So why even put it on there?
Well, apparently it's in the comp plan. I didn't recall it stated exactly that way, but maybe it is. What really needs to happen is that there needs to be a left-only turn lane going both north and south on 522.
We could put that in there.
Right now, there's a right only, and then there's a straight and left. And that's what causes the confusion, because somebody coming south facing somebody who thinks they can turn, unless both cars turn, you've got a tragedy sitting there, because one's gonna turn and one's not, and they're gonna, and that's the real issue with that intersection, is you need a left only added to what's there both north and south.
I think that's what happened.
I thought that's what the comp
plan
plan was talking about, but I don't, I'm sure you lifted it correctly, Josh, I'm not saying you did, it just,
No, that's.
my recollection of the issue there is a slightly different one.
Because that project was actually taken from the other Route 20 study from the other end of the county. That's how that made that in there. But if the board would like, I mean, we can alter that and bring it to the committee's attention.
That would be my recommendation.
Actually, if you want to address virtually all of them in here, number 1, 4-lane Route 20. Number 2, 4-lane Route 20. Number 3, 4-lane Route 20. Number 4, 4-lane Route 20. And get down and finish, I mean, that addresses most all of it. Which is what it should have been done to start with, but.
Be interesting with 300 or so intersections between 3 and the town of Orange.
Have you driven up Route 3 and counted those?
Driven from Route 3 to the town of Orange, and I've counted them. There's about 300 accesses to 20 on both sides.
Yep.
And having
Drive Route 3 to Fredericksburg, because that, when I was a kid, that was a 2-lane road with driveways all the way up and down. But
yeah, I'd like to switch number 4 to address the issue, the left turn issue.
The little access management, perhaps?
Right.
Okay. Okay, well, the committee will meet in August, and we'll bring this to their attention and for their discussion, and we'll report back later.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, next would be the feasibility study for trails.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, at your May 21st meeting, we discussed about starting at least a feasibility analysis of potential multi-use trail, generally going from Mayhurst to Montpelier. Just wanted to we're making progress. Are actually interviewing 2 of our continuing service engineering firms tomorrow, Wiley Wilson and RK&K, and so my plan is to have at least a scope, budget, cost, and things back to you at your July 22nd meeting. So I was recently was meeting for another purpose, but with Kat Imhoff at Montpelier, and she did again expressed her very interested in support of us kind of looking at how we might be able to connect with their trail system, current and planned, and how maybe we can start growing that for economic development purposes.
Or we can put it across that new trail that goes with the pipeline. Bad joke. Okay.
I don't know which is better, that or the 4-laning of Route 20.
Exactly.
I can see the 4-inch high headlines now.
Yeah.
So just keep that on your radar screen.
Okay. And then the Germanna Wilderness Area Plan.
We have a package in there.
We're working on 2 of 8.
Yeah.
Some areas, that's probably the summary statement.
Yeah, the summary, but the thing is, there's a lot more detail in what we have today. And I think at this point, Brian is setting up so that we can start taking comments on the website on it. I'm trying to encourage, at least within my constituency, early comments so that we're not presenting them with something that we've worked on for a number of months, and I would rather get the comments early, and there's some substance there. There's also some draft zoning ordinance language there that has a chance to start getting some input and feedback on the things that Josh and Greg have put together on that. So now's the time to start looking, both as a board and as anybody else who wants to make comments. But we're really trying to encourage comments, and I will continue to make an issue of, hey, it's there, we've got new stuff, come tell me about what you don't like, because I don't want to have to cite at a public hearing when somebody says, first time I've heard about it, and cite, umpteen articles in the Freelance Star, the Orange County Review, and my articles saying that we're doing something. I think that we all need to make sure that we're pushing people to do this. But there is a lot more detail, and we had some interesting discussions yesterday at the development meeting down at the other end of the county, and some people with some interesting things. Did you get those others from Larry Hutchison about the sewer plant? No, I got to. We got discussing the other day about infrastructure, and I was saying we're worried about how much water we got. And we figured out a way to get a lot more water, is we put the sewage plant upstream of the water plant, and apparently that's happening all over the country in some form or another. Some places piping it directly. He gave me a lot of references to California, and California seems to be using it more for irrigation water.
Was it Camp Pendleton? Was that the one that was?
He was, yeah. I didn't look that up, but there are others that the feds are funding a lot for California, but it's mostly to take wastewater and put it on the fields and in on the lawns. But anyway, since this is quite a ways off, we'll be looking at it. And the fact is that we already have a wastewater plant upstream of our water plant. It's called the Orange County Town of Orange Sewage Plant.
At least the Town of Orange.
And we have, and Fredericksburg has one in terms of the Lake of the Woods sewage plant, or the Wilderness sewage plant. So I mean, it's already there. It's just, I think it's less of a technical issue and more of a cultural issue, perception issue. So I'm going to start raising the issue in my articles just to start getting people thinking about it.
You might get their attention.
Well, I know that'll, I occasionally write an article people actually respond to. Maybe this will be one.
A little twist on the "you are what you eat."
I don't think I'll use that.
Yeah. You're done on that one, Phil.
But that's where we're going now, so it is,
I think the important piece of information that people need to be aware of is that I think it's the day after the steering committee meets and has something that it shows up on the website. So it's available for reading and comment and everything else, almost in real time. And we want to encourage people to start looking at it, because the format is evolved enough now, and as Lee says, there's enough meat now, you can start to see where things are going. And so, people can start forming opinions.
we've only had two of the sections are covered with detail. But a couple of the sections are basically going to say, it's as it is, it ain't gonna change. Primarily Lake of the Woods and primary the Germana Foundation-owned land, it's pretty much gonna stay.
And the battlefield land.
And the battlefield land.
So there's three of the 8 are probably gonna be, what you see is what you will have.
Even there's nothing changing 50 years other than maybe running a road differently through the battlefield area.
Well, I was reading through it last night, and I'm very impressed with the detail that y'all have worked down to.
Well, we can compliment our planning and zoning staff for putting a lot of that stuff together.
That's why I can lounge tonight.
Well, and I think, and this was part of the charrette, sort of indirectly, at least part of the charrette output, was breaking it into phases and sub-areas and things like that allows you to focus a discussion like we just did, the area that Germana owns. We can say, it is what it is, we want it to be what it is, and that's the end of the discussion. And so you can set aside several hundred acres, I don't even know what the parcels add up to, of the planning, sort of, there it is.
The trees will have 50 more rings of growth on them.
And I think probably the same thing is true with the battlefield. So it allows you to really focus on other areas and phase them and all sorts of things. So I think the model that we're using is one that will work, because we're trying not to cause people to read 50 pages in order to get a message. They can get a message, once they get familiar with the format, they can get a message in about 10 minutes and see what's going on.
Yeah, they don't need to look at the hydrographic, they don't need to look at the, some of the history, they just say, go to this phase and there's, maybe a third of a page that tells you what you want to know.
Couple things to keep in mind. I think when you point out the battlefield, the community college is part of that area, that sub area, and the national park. Those are actually assets that have to be protected in their current state. Certainly, community college growth there is important for our workforce development, but keeping Germana as a tourist attraction, as a tourism asset, same thing with the park. So, while the plan doesn't talk about land use development of those properties, it does set up some goals of how to leverage those for economic development purposes, because what they are now is what gives them value. And so how does that integrate also with these other growth areas? So I think the idea of keeping them the same is actually very important, because that creates value from an economic development standpoint.
That's why they're an asset.
Exactly. You don't always have to have a shovel in the ground to have an asset.
Yes, sir.
Although Dr. Sams did mention the other day at another meeting I was at, their replacement plans for the current building down there are now 2 years farther out due to the budget debacle. They've actually had to push them out to 2 additional years. So it will be a little bit longer before we see new structure down there.
It'll also depend upon the next couple of budgets.
Well, very true, but
He thinks it's 2 years.
it's at least 2 years, put it that way.
And just a bit of housekeeping for the steering committee. We've canceled our meeting on the 22nd, and because it's just summertime and people's availability. We are going to meet on the 28th or 29th. The 15th. We've canceled that meeting, and we're scheduling we're meeting again on the 29th, and we're going to keep moving forward with all our sub areas pretty quickly. Our next big sub area is sub area 4, which involves that large tracts of land north of Route 3, where the town center and things will be involved. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any question on the information item? Committee report? Calendar?
Ask, how difficult would it be, we throw the board meetings on the calendar, but it's 3 pages with 6 entries to include some of the other meetings that are going on in the county. EDA, Planning Commission, the Tourist Advisory Council.
Even steering committee meetings.
Steering committee meeting.
Yeah. All the things that we
Are involved in.
Whether we're involved with it or not, directly, at least one or the other of us, and we'd like to know what they're doing.
How about either all the meetings that you are personally representing the board as a member of, or you appoint somebody to, or there's regional meetings and those things?
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
One of y'all's master calendars.
all it does now is tell us that we meet.
We meet on Tuesdays and, second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And I think that, we can use that more effectively.
Yes, sir.
I like that.
It's only taken me 7 years to figure that out.
And the airport meetings, they're real easy, because We don't have any unless it's called specially anymore, so.
All right. What else do we have?